Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Ben Bradley. I'm Chief Operating Officer in AMO, and we are here to talk about having physicians in the family. Joined, with me today is a physician in my family, Allison Bradley. So I'll let her introduce herself, and then we'll pass it to Reem, who is going to be joining the AMO program here soon. So, Allison, why don't you uh, talk a little bit about yourself and where you're going for residency. Oh, you're on
There
mute.
you go. So my name's Allison. I'm a fourth year med student. I'll be graduating in June. I go to school in Detroit, Michigan. I just finished match. I matched into a program in family medicine. So I'm going to be in Indianapolis doing a family medicine residency. Very excited.
Thanks, Al. And Reem, how about you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Hi, my name is Reem. I'm a fourth year medical student following the MBBS program, studying in Saudi Arabia. I'm just starting to prepare for my USMLE Step 1. And I'm just going to start my rotations with the AMO this June. It's an ICU cardiology, so I'm just very excited and I'm looking forward to it.
Great, thank you, Reem. And just so everybody caught that, fourth year is a little different between the MD and the MBBS. So Allison, is in the MD program. She went to a different degree program before this. She's finished. Reem is now just getting into her clinical years in the MBBS. So have people at different stages of the journey, and again, encourage you to ask questions in the chat. We do have people in the chat that will either respond or pass questions to me. We'll try to fit your questions in, and all this will be recorded so you can watch it later or send it to your friends if they weren't able to join. So I guess to kick things off, we'll talk a little bit about having physicians in our family. I guess I'll start with mine. Allison obviously is becoming a physician. My father was a physician. My mom was a nurse. We've got cousins who are physicians. So, we've been around medicine our entire lives. And, it's just really interesting to see kind of how people are talking about it in the day to day. It really bleeds into everything. It obviously led me down a different path, but Allison, maybe you could talk a little bit about, seeing mom and dad and talking about healthcare and our family members. How did that influence your decision to go into medicine? Did that make you want to do it, or was it a barrier to overcome? How did that kind of affect you going forward?
Yeah, so I think since I was younger, seeing kind of our parents both be involved in healthcare in some way and in different fields really made me interested in health and science, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to do. But I think there was an influence, and our father was a surgeon, and I think that can be a really hard lifestyle. So I think just growing up and kind of getting more experience and having him tell me about it more, being in medicine and being a doctor can look really different in different fields, and it can be a very different lifestyle between different fields. But I think it really always stood out to me with my dad being a surgeon, how much he was really committed to being there. I don't think anything should really deter you from the field that you want to go to. Like the kind of lifestyle, he was at all of our sports, he was at graduations, he was at everything, but he was also waking up at 2 a.m. to go to the hospital to do surgery. So I think just really thinking about those different things and the kind of lifestyle that I wanted really kind of influenced my path.
Yeah, that's right. He was on the dark side. No, just kidding. Both physicians, medicine and surgery, both very, very, very necessary. But Allison took the medicine path, which I'm sure many of our attendees are cheering in the background. But Reem, why don't you tell us a little bit about your family and kind of did that have any influence on you going into medicine, trying to become a doctor?
Well, my mom is she's a consultant, family medicine, and my dad is a military doctor. But also, I have on my mom's side like a lot of my uncles are pursuing medicines, none are surgeons. And yeah. And my sister, yeah, she's also she's now in residency. She's gone into medicine as well. I think I would be lying if I said that it didn't have an influence. And yeah, it was a good influence, but I can't lie also to say that there was a bit of a pressure, like, is that the path that I'm expected to take, or I'm allowed to have like other goals? But I think for me, fortunately, I'm already interested in science. And growing up, I was surrounded by my parents, and I've always seen them talk about like their work. And I was like, I can't wait to understand whatever they're talking about. So I think that it was in my part that I was like lucky to actually enjoy that. So that's why I think, yeah, it had a very huge influence on me.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. Just being around it, and there certainly is pressure. I know if all of your family is in medicine, just like anything, right? But the great thing is, even if you start in medicine and maybe you find out it's not for you,
Mm,
there are lots of great jobs. You mentioned consultants in the UK, but medical consulting in the US is very in demand for physicians. And
yeah.
some people, they get into the hospital, they have their degree, and maybe it's just not right for them. There's still a
Mhm.
lot of different career paths, and you get a lot of really, really great experience. Um, I guess though you both have family members that are trying to tell you, they've walked the path. Maybe, what's some advice they've given you? Has that advice, worked out, or do you think maybe things are changing? Allison, we can start with you. You've got obviously older physicians that trained in a different era. What kind of advice have they given you? Do you feel like things have changed in the US kind of in your experience, or has that advice really, stuck with you?
I mean, I think from other family members, I've gotten kind of this old school idea of things were very like hierarchical, and you have to be so in your job all the time, that's your whole life. But even from just our dad, something he always told me when I was in medical school and picking a specialty and kind of going through it is the importance of having an identity outside of medicine. The importance of having an identity just outside of your job. You should love medicine, you should work hard, you should do all those things, but it's important to kind of maintain a sense of yourself outside of medicine. I think that kind of helps you find yourself, helps you prevent burnout for sure, which I think is getting away a little bit from the older idea of,
Yes.
you live in the
Yeah.
hospital, you work in the hospital. We're kind of getting
Yes.
away from that and doing a little bit more focus on like
Yeah.
Yeah.
wellness and wholeness.
Yeah. And Reem, how about you? Anything? You mean, it sounds like everybody in your family is a physician. So have they given you? I'm sure they've given you a lot of advice. What's kind of one piece that sticks with you, and maybe were things different from their era, and things have changed, and maybe you've had to adapt. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Well, definitely the old school idea is that if you work hard, you're gonna see results. And like from my mom's side of the family, they've always pushed me to study hard. But I feel like because my mom, she's around me and she sees how much I've worked, she always encouraged me to be more involved with the activities that are in the my university and my school. Like there's much more to med school than just like go study and then go back home and do whatever work you're given. Also, she always encourages me to go out with my friends, have a life outside of medicine, because she like had to deal with that because she when she had us, she was still in residency, so she had to figure out the whole work and life balance. So she wants us to have that before we like go into other commitments and stuff. So she wants us to see the other side of like medicine, like you have an actual life. Medicine is not
Mhm.
everything. So I think growing up and seeing her kind of manage that balance, I want that for me.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And in the old ways of, residents working 36-hour shifts or more, that's starting to kind of fade out because they're realizing, at least in the US, that the care that's being given is not maybe to the highest quality at the end of those
Yeah.
shifts. And it's tough because all the trainers, went through that lifestyle. And, as a student or a new resident, you kind of have to assert yourself and stand up for yourself and really have to develop that life outside so you don't fall into that path. And I think that's a really great point. Let's talk a little bit about specialties and kind of what you're thinking and how that's been influenced. So, Al, you talked about this a little bit. You're not going to be a surgeon. You've been interested in a couple different specialties. Thinking about residency. How did you kind of end up choosing your specialty, and how did the other physicians around you, other family members, even maybe your friends, close friends, how did they kind of influence your decision to go into FM?
Yeah, so I think third year in general is really about exploring your interests, kind of going into every rotation with an open mind and kind of trying to get the most you can out of every rotation you go on. So for me, going into third year, I knew I really loved women's health. I wanted to do something with underserved communities. So it was kind of getting the most opportunity for that out of every rotation. I did an OB-GYN rotation, I did surgery rotations kind of all towards the beginning of the year. And then when I hit family medicine, it just felt like the best combination of all the things I was really passionate about. I was able to get continuity with patients and really sit down and have kind of those teamwork conversations that I was looking for. But it also had my interests of, I love doing procedures. I love hands-on things. I love everything to do with women's health. So that kind of was the best fit for me. And I think a big part of that was finding good mentors in the field. My med school mentor was a family medicine physician working at a federally qualified health center, which was something I was interested in. It was something that served kind of the underserved community. And that was inspiring for me. So finding people who are doing what you want to be doing, kind of living the life that you want to see yourself living, and getting a lot of advice from them and support from them was really big for me.
Yeah, and if you're an IMG and you're watching this, the path that Allison's talking about, working at FQHC in the U.S., that's very needed. We actually have a doctor shortage, and overwhelmingly IMGs make up primary care and care for rural and underserved communities and diverse communities. So if that's a path you're interested in, definitely follow that. Look at family medicine. Now, Reem, you're still early on, but maybe talk to us a little bit about what you're interested in right now. Is that influenced by your family, or are you trying to strike out and do something totally different, or maybe you just don't know? So what are your thoughts right now on what you'd like to practice?
Well, because this year, fourth year, was my first year at clerkship, I was pretty excited because I still didn't know which path I wanted to go, which specialty. So I had the opportunity to rotate at different specialties. One thing that I knew from the start that I was interested in sports. So I was wondering if there is some sort of specialty that is that has sports in it. And then when I rotated with the orthopedic rotation, I saw the things that they do and the hands-on, and I knew that they had sports medicine as a subspecialty, but it's the non-surgical part.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, that maybe I would do that. But also when I've taken the internal medicine rotation, I think I've loved the medicine part because I usually, at pre-med, my preclinical years, I enjoyed physiology. So I wanted something close to that. And I felt that medicine was something that I enjoyed. I've still haven't rotated in emergency, but I think that's something that I might find that I might enjoy it, because I feel I don't want to have a specialty where I constantly face the same cases. So I think maybe emergency medicine would suit me. I feel like I need a new case every day. So for now, maybe orthopedic, maybe sports medicine. I certainly want something surgical. I don't think maybe medicine would fit me, because I want new cases. So
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think it's illustrative of just how you have so many different influences right now on things you want to, find or do. You still want to see things. So you're still in the discovery phase. And I think it's really important there. And, Reem is soon to learn this, going in and finding mentors. So maybe you take a rotation. Allison mentioned this. You talk with somebody, maybe you continue to talk with that person and you find out it's right for you, or maybe it's not right for you. And the great thing is your preceptors, whether they're in AMO programs or at your home school or anywhere else, they're going to speak to you honestly about what the job is like, because they don't want you to get into something that you don't want to do. So ask them questions, not just about the cases in front of you, but what is their day like? If you really want to be like them, ask them, how do I be like you? How do you study? It's people that are teaching, they want to give back. And they want to help train the next generation of physicians. So, ask them. They're going to be very helpful. So, I guess you've given a little piece of this as we've gone, but for students that are looking, Allison, you just matched. For people going into the match, Reem, you're just getting into your clinical years. For students that are still in their preclinical, what's one piece of advice you give to the student looking at the match, Allison? How should they look at programs, locations? How should they prepare? Maybe what's one or two pieces of advice you'd pass down?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I wish I would have done in my clinical years, when you have like a meaningful interaction with a patient where you really learn something, where a challenge arose, write it down. Even if it's like at the beginning of your rotations, you're not applying for 2 years, write it down and kind of highlight the things that you learned from that experience, because you're going to have something for your personal statement. And it's going to be a question in every interview, when did you have a challenging patient? What was something you learned from inpatient? How did you work in a team? So when you have those experiences, write them down. And that way, when you're interviewing, you're not kind of grasping back for things that happened a year or two ago, and you have those answers ready and fresh in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, do you want me to talk about looking for programs a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. Just because a lot of our students, maybe they're coming from schools where the match is not part of their normal, so they don't get all that coaching. They probably have a lot more information that would be really useful for them.
Right. So as you're looking for programs, there's a couple different sites you can use. Doximity, there's usually like an academy of physicians for each specialty that will have each state and each program and kind of the city. What I did was I broke it up into regions. The first region I did was the Midwest. I study in Detroit, my family's in Chicago, kind of pick things regionally that are around that. And then go through the programs. Definitely do your research. Make sure that programs have opportunities and things that you're looking for. Be ready with questions that you want to ask that you think will make programs stand out from each other. It's about getting the education that you're looking for. So really do your research and make sure that what you're looking for is available at those programs, and that those programs will support you in what you're passionate about.
That's a great point. And the other thing we'll say too is, just from my experience working with IMGs, a lot of people hear the top ranked programs in the U.S. So if you're in India or anywhere, Philippines, you've heard of Mayo Clinic, you've heard of Harvard, you've heard of Stanford. But the thing is, those places are getting so many applicants from the U.S., everywhere else. Their applicant list is very, very long. 95% of all the residency programs, the training, it's not happening at these top systems. It's happening in community teaching systems, some university hospitals, but there are just a lot of places where a lot of really good teaching is happening, and it's not the top brand. So if you're really trying to match as an IMG, you have to think, how can I go in, get what I want, and be competitive? And you're at a disadvantage because you're not a USMD. So you have to get better scores, you have to have better experiences, all of these sorts of things. We'll look at places where other people, not every single person is applying to. And if you really want to be in New York and you're looking at a system, you know, AMO may have a rotation with one of those positions. We may have a rotation with the hospital, and getting, you know, building that connection in the system can be very, very helpful as well, because it's somebody that will be a reference for you. Maybe upload an LOR for ERAS when the time comes. So Reem, I'll ask the same question to you, but just for students getting into their clinical years, what would you say is one piece of advice you can tell a student, hey, this is what you should do before your first rotation, or, you know, what you should know going into your rotations, or what you wish you would have known?
I would say to keep an open mind, because me and a lot of my friends, when we first started our clerkship, we were excited about certain rotations, and we've kind of like put all our hopes for those rotations. And then when we did rotate them, we didn't really get what we expected. Some of us were disappointed, and rotations were even thought of. So I think if you're just now starting your clinical years, just keep an open mind. And I think like maybe during your summer, try to, with AMO or with any other hospital if you want, try to gain some clinical experience early on, because I feel like the more exposure that you get, the obviously you're going to gain your letter of recommendations, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to deal with most patients. You want to see as much exposure as for cases, because I feel like one factor that have helped me is that once I study a topic or a certain system, I don't remember as much unless I face a case at the hospital, so that I can make the connections. Sometimes you read like most books of medicine and your anatomy or physiology, but you don't really get it unless you see a patient. So I feel like if you rotate and see like actual cases, that will help you later on.
Yeah.
So I think that's my advice, is that try to get as many clinical experiences as you can and keep an open mind.
Yeah, those are great points, Reem. And for preclinical students also, we do have, whether you're actually, we have a partnership with AMSA for pre-medical training. So if you're US pre-med and you're looking at this, you want to do some shadowing and experience that, we can set that up. Or if you're a preclinical student abroad, we do have observerships. You can go in, there's basically, it's a program doing an observership. They will either allow you to do it kind of preclinical, where it's very much shadowing, or if you're a graduate and you just can't do hands-on because of the rules, then it can be tailored more to, you know, a graduate. But preclinical, we still have programs, and yes, it's a great opportunity. And then the other thing I will say is, everybody knows about the famous situation, hey, I've always wanted to be a surgeon. You go into surgery, you see blood, and you pass out. So don't put too many eggs in one basket, because you just don't know what you're going to get in anything in life. It's not even medicine. You just don't know what you're going to get until you experience it. So get that experience early and keep an open mind. Those are great points. The last thing I want to touch on here is really, well, I guess the last question I have before we just talk about our future goals is how virtual has affected kind of your recent, you know, exposure. So for example, Allison, why don't you tell me a little bit about how it was to interview virtually? We're still expecting virtual interviews for this cycle, but how did you prepare for that? Were there any benefits? Were there any disadvantages? Maybe just talk about the residency match interviewing over Zoom like this.
Yeah. So now that I've spent probably, 60 hours on Zoom after interview season, I think the important thing is it was a new experience for everyone. You have to be kind of calm and patient with it. Technical issues will happen to you. They will happen to the interviewers. Be calm, laugh it off, have everybody's phone numbers or the program coordinator's phone numbers written down, so that if you're missing an interview, like it cuts off, you can call the program coordinator and say, hey, I was talking to this person, and people understand it's new for everyone. We're all making the best of it. I think benefits, you save a lot of money. Interviewing is really expensive. Applying can get really expensive. Not traveling to those places for every interview, I think, makes it a little bit more obtainable for everybody. You know, you can, especially if you're kind of applying really broadly, it'll be less costly for you. I think negatives, you don't get to see the program is one. You're kind of going in a little blind to the situation, but I think I was surprised from my experience that you could really tell which programs you could make a relationship with, which programs you were really bonding with the attending, bonding with the residents. You know, it's kind of an awkward experience for everybody, but you do have those moments where you're like, oh, I'd really love to work with this person. They're doing something really interesting. This program is doing something really cool. I can tell they're really committed to the community. So I think those things do come through. You just really have to think about what questions you want to ask during your interviews to get the information that you need.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think one thing you keyed in on there that I'm just going to expand on further is the ability to write things down. So you mentioned writing down the phone numbers for coordinators and things like that, but typically in a normal interview, you can't bring in your notebook and your Post-it notes and put them up next to you. But on a virtual interview, you can. And that's one thing we've heard from people matching now is they've got all of their stats for the programs, questions they want to ask, all kind of here off screen. And it allows you to kind of do a little bit more preparation and, you know, in terms of note taking and being ready. So you're not being able to, you know, meet the front desk person, talk to other people. That's obviously a disadvantage, but take advantage of the other things that Zoom gives you. And that's the ability to kind of, you know, have everything right in front of you and your resources all pulled up, and, you know, you'll succeed because that's something that a lot of people are not doing. Reem, I'm going to, you know, pass it to you here. So I don't know if you've done any virtual work in your homeschool, but, you know, preparing for virtual rotation, kind of what are your thoughts on Zoom and how it's affected your training and kind of the transition to Zoom and then back to kind of in-person training and, you know, the benefits and the cons, as you would say?
This year, some rotations have done, we've done some rotations through Zoom, virtual. I think that the benefits of them is you stay at home, you see cases through your comfort of your home. But I feel like some rotations, especially like surgery, you must be there. You must attend them on hand and be in person. My rotation with AMO this upcoming month is virtual, and I'm really excited about it because I feel like something that Allison has pointed out is that you save money, like the cost of finding a good place to stay, the cost of plane, and I feel like you can book more than one rotations because you're doing it at home. And I feel like one thing that I actually enjoyed is that we like divide ourselves to smaller groups, so the preceptors can pay more attention to you, to your questions, can answer all your questions. So I feel that you can get the most of it when you have like smaller groups, and you see like more patients. So I think virtuals can have like some of these benefits. And one thing that I didn't like is that when we did our surgery rotations for my med school, some days we've done it virtually, and I feel like surgery, I can't do it virtually. Like I have to be there and see what is going on.
Yeah, then that's a good point. And for our listeners there, if you go on our site, you'll see that we do not have virtual surgery programs, and it's for that reason. Some specialties are just better suited for virtual. For example, we work with U.S. med schools now, and especially for DO, psychiatry they can actually do a full psychiatry rotation completely virtual because it's very much, you know, one-to-one direct with the patient, and then actually increased one-to-one time with the physician, because normally when you're with the physician, they've got nurse practitioners, they've got PAs, they've got residents. They may say, go with this person, you know, come back to me at the end of the day. Not so with virtual. You are with the physician very much the whole time, and they are, you know, asking you questions in the waiting room. They can really simulate what they call the hallway conversation, and you're with the physician. You're not with the others. So it's an improved, you know, the pros obviously can do a lot more per dollar. You can see a lot of different specialties. You can even look and go do a virtual rotation at 3 different locations, right? Maybe Chicago, New York, Miami. Those are maybe cities you want to match into. You just build connections. But the con is, you know, it's the true value comes really from the medicine type specialties. Surgery, we're working on some technical tools that we can really hope to, you know, deploy a virtual surgical rotation. But you're totally right, Reem. There's nothing like actually putting your hands on and assisting with surgery. So 100%, it's a new world. And the one thing I will say is this past year, many students did virtual rotations. You know, our AMO students, I think we had a couple hundred actually, and those students did go on to match because virtual is, you know, it's a new thing. The medicine industry has moved probably 10 years of telemedicine in progress in the last year. So if you're worried about travel restrictions to the US, if you're worried about budget, you know, virtual is a great option. And if you really show yourself that you're prepared and you are very, you know, talkative, you ask a lot of questions, you answer, you can get a really great letter of recommendation from virtual. Okay, so last question here. It'll be a 2-part, I guess. Well, let's talk about what is, you know, your goal now in medicine, your plan. You know, is that something that you're, you know, you feel like that was your family's goal, or did you kind of chart your own path? And I guess any tips for somebody that maybe didn't have the same family connections or had family connections, but they didn't want to do the same thing? You know, what does the next 10 years look like in, you know, in medicine, and you know, what can you pass on to the viewers out there? So we'll start with Allison. I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah, so I think goals for right now, kind of figure out the transition into residency. I think it's kind of similar to a transition to med school in terms of just like a really big life change, but now I think a little bit more with the tools to be ready for it. I just want to get as much training as I can in the next 3 years for my residency in family medicine. Definitely make connections, kind of find mentors within the program and get as much out of it as I can. In terms of,
Are you thinking private practice down the line, or do you want to stay at a system?
I would love to do something academic. I think I definitely want to work with med students in the future, whether that be, you know, teaching or in some way. So bringing that into my career is really important. I don't think I want to do as much private. I'm really interested in underserved communities. And for me, Spanish speaking communities was a big thing for me. I was a Spanish major in college. So kind of finding communities that have that need for physicians. Something I would give advice, I think, looking for medical students and for residents who have those connections with physicians in the family, I think you definitely have to acknowledge kind of the privilege and the opportunity that comes with that, and make yourself available to people who don't have those kinds of opportunities. So going forward, thinking about, you know, how am I going to mentor other students? How am I going to help other students? You know, are you going to be that attending that's ready to write a letter, that's ready to give advice, that's there for students? Kind of, you had those connections already and you had those opportunities kind of waiting for you. So make sure that you're opening the door for other people to come through, I think is important.
And Reem?
For my goals, I think right now I'm just focused at trying to pass the USMLE and just try to figure out what are the requirements for matching into the US residency programs. Also, I want to get as many clinical experience as I can get, and I want to make connections with physicians. Also, I'm really interested in research, so I want to work on that as well. And for as an advice from someone that has physicians in their family, I feel like I know that it's kind of hard to try and prove yourself because like everyone else is a doctor, so you're nothing special. Like it's not something, oh, I got into medicine. Yeah, everyone else have gotten into medicine from your family. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to try and prove yourself. Just enjoy the journey. And you are privileged to have like physicians in your family that can help you, whether it be it that help you in school or help you throughout your life. So I think you should acknowledge that. And just like Allison said, and then you can help other people who don't have that privilege.
Yep, great answers. And we did have a question from the panel, and it's just kind of in general. They said, well, where can I get these opportunities, med students, looking clinical experiences? Obviously, you can go to our site and sign up at AMO and search our 250 clinical experiences. We work with U.S. medical schools that accept international students. We have programs all the way down to if you have a lower budget or virtual, individual professors. We have all sorts of options. But I do want to also acknowledge, look at the VSLO. There are programs for international students. They're limited. There are other resources out there, but look everywhere. Sign up for AMO. If you have specific goals, you can work with an advisor. They'll help you pick out some programs that fit your budget. Put together a trip, an itinerary if you want to do a couple of programs. But reach out. The email is advisors@amopportunities.org, or you go to our website. There's a little email or contact button for us. So we will end it there. I want to thank Allison Bradley, my sister and soon-to-be resident. I want to thank Reem for her time today, or tonight, I should say, because she's far ahead of us in time zone. Thank you, Reem, for making the time. If you have any other questions for us or either of the panelists, like I said, AMO, you go to our website, you can send us a message on Facebook, and we'll get you an answer, and we'll pass it along if it's a specific question for one of our panelists. But thank you everybody for joining. We'll have this up on our Facebook, and you can share it out to your friends. So thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.